Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Kathy Cully, and really glad to be here with you guys and fire survivors in general to talk about personal finance. And I am going to ask my folks here if they can see my screen. Maybe a thumbs up. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. So this presentation is called Financial Fitness for Fire Survivors. I've given this presentation probably 20 times, but this one is geared specifically for survivors of the Alameda Fire, from crisis to stability. So this is part one. Hopefully there'll be a part two that is from stability to prosperity. And I have been a money coach for 15 years. I've taught mindset methods and also practical money management methods, while being a very alternative person, having a small business, being a musician, being a yoga teacher, being a coach. I did music in nursing homes for 20 years and have done various careers that have not been the traditional career, but I've been able to get results through these methods and be able to teach friends how to get ahead financially. And so I'm really grateful to be able to present today and help fire survivors to have more financial stability moving forward after the awful events that we all went through. So yeah, this is a picture of me giving a presentation for a small business development center in Medford, and this was a few years back, and those are some of the various places where I've given talks. So the Alameda Fire happened, as we all know, September 8th, 2020. This is a picture of my home, my manufactured home that my husband and I had, and we loved it. It was like a little oasis. We had done all new landscaping. We had completely renovated it inside and out. And then that's the after picture. You know, that's what it looked like after the fire. That's my husband and son looking through the rubble. There was pretty much nothing left. And we were devastated. It was, yeah, I don't even want to go into the evacuation story today because there are a lot of other forums for that. You know, we talk about that at the Zone Captains Meetup. We share evacuation stories. But I just want you to see the reality of what we went through. And, you know, we got our kids, our cats, and our computers. That's what we got out of the home. And we also had a good financial outcome. And the reason we were able to buy a house. This is the front door of the house that we were able to buy 6 months after the fire. We had been in temporary housing for 6 months. The reason we were able to buy this home is we were debt free. We had savings and investments that we had been working on. We had good insurance, and we had connections. We knew a realtor, we knew a lender. And I acknowledge my privilege in that as a white educated person. I don't want to overlook that. That is a factor, and that's one of the reasons why I work to help people of color and business owners of color have access to financial opportunities. It's one of the reasons why I'm so committed to helping mobile home tenants have advocacy, because they tend to be the poorest and the most working class, and you know, a lot of seniors and a lot of Latinx people represented in those communities. So after the fire, as you guys know, I joined Zone Captains, and we help advocate for fire survivors. And if you are a fire survivor watching this video, I really encourage you, if you have not signed up for our network yet, please do so. Go to zonecaptains.org and sign up. And there's a box there in English and also on Espanol where you can sign up with your name, email, phone, pre-fire address, and current mailing address. And that will sign you up for our network to be able to advocate for you. So I want to talk about all of the things that surround personal finance, right? So it's a complicated situation. We had the fire, we had COVID before the fire, right? So even before the fire and before COVID, lots of Americans were experiencing money stress already, right? 70% of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck. 57% of Americans had less than $1,000 in savings. Most people had no budget, no plan for spending, including myself back before 7 years ago. Growing debt, lack of savings and investments, and lack of proper insurance actually was really, really common. And so this is kind of the stage that was set before COVID even, right? Debt was a common and is a common American thing, right? Having credit card debt, consumer debt. I'm not talking about the kind of debt that you get in just to like keep a roof over your head after the fire. I'm talking about like credit card debt that balloons because you just aren't tracking it and you're living beyond your means, which most Americans do. Debt reduces your cash flow, it reduces your wealth, it increases your risk, and it makes you like this doggy here, way down. It's hard to get ahead when you have a lot of consumer debt. And sadly, that's kind of the American way is we're taught to consume beyond what we save. What is risk? I think we all, are highly aware of that after the fire. It's exposing ourselves to danger. And I'm grateful in a way for the fire because it highlights this opportunity for all of us to become more aware of how we expose ourselves to risk or not. And we can make conscious choices about, well, how do I want to protect myself? Or maybe there's a risk that I'm willing to take and not be protected, but just to be more mindful of that. But many of us were obviously more exposed to danger through lack of insurance and through debt and debt load before COVID. Okay, so then we have COVID. COVID came along. So then we have income insecurity and insurance lapses even further. So tens of millions have been unemployed. There was some unemployment relief. I know that helped some. My husband got some of that when his small business couldn't operate. But still, at the end of last year, 20 million households were reporting they didn't have enough food to eat, and 10 million households were behind on rent. Right now, the job market is rebounding. You've seen more jobs, but there's still 3 million fewer people employed than before the pandemic. And I saw this firsthand the summer before the fire. I heard about this after the fire, actually. That summer, many manufactured homeowners canceled their insurance. It's really sad. The $50 a month insurance, they canceled it that summer because of the economic pressures of COVID. So, these two things, setting the stage here, the American way and the COVID issues, that was all happening before the fire. And then, of course, after the fire, this is what we've got going on financially in Jackson County. We've got major housing crisis and ongoing stress. And I just want to set the stage for this. I don't mean to be doom and gloom, but just to really highlight that to build financial security in our valley, it's more complex after the fire than before. So, the affordable housing inventory, as we know, has been destroyed. It has not built back to pre-fire levels. The skyrocketing costs, as well as lack of inventory, has been a hardship. And also a lot of people have spent their insurance or FEMA funds just on living expenses. So now they don't have those nest eggs to be able to invest in a new home. There's a lot of trauma and stress ongoing from having to live in temporary housing and the emotional issues people are dealing with. There are some housing grant programs and rental assistance available, and I wanted to put the Access website here. If we post this video on social media, I will also put all links to resources in the post so that people can contact Access. But there's a lack of information about the resources. Thus, zone captains, we fill a really important role to distribute information about what is available and to advocate for people and give them social support. Now, the good news is there is a way to turn things around. Things are complex. But I want to share with you the plan that I used starting 7 years ago as a single mom in debt, making $1,500 a month, 300 of which was food stamps. So I started at the bare bottom, and if I can turn my ship around, I know anyone can. We have to get extra support when we're fire survivors, emotionally and financially, and we'll talk about that. So this is the plan I want to share with you. These are the 7 financial baby steps. I did not invent this. Dave Ramsey packaged this, and he didn't invent this stuff. It's pretty much basic personal finance wisdom from the last 50 years distilled into 7 steps. And I am a certified Dave Ramsey coach. I love his system. It worked well for me, and that's why I love to share it. So today we're just going to talk about part 1, and part 2, hopefully we'll do at the next presentation. So part 1, I'm actually going to talk about a little crisis step before part 1, because for many fire survivors, they're not even able to do part 1, right? So, so if you're not able to do part 1, do not beat yourself up. Where, many of us are just keeping ourselves afloat. But the general picture is, over time, you want to work towards having $1,000 in an emergency fund, paying off all your consumer debt, and having 3 to 6 months of expenses in savings. That's the ideal. And of course, we'll break that down in a minute. And of course, for fire survivors, this can be difficult. So I really acknowledge that. Part 2 is further wealth building that we'll talk about next time. That's investing, college funding, paying off your home, and being able to give really big. Many of us have a giving or tithing practice where we give 10% of our income away as we're building wealth or as we're getting stable. But when you get really stable, you're able to do some bigger giving. And so that's kind of a nice thing to look forward to, that as you are able to become more financially secure, you can, start really helping your community in bigger ways. Okay, so let's talk about that crisis step. If someone is, if you're living in a hotel, if you are struggling to get work, if you are dealing with a health challenge, so many fire survivors have multiple challenges. So for those of us who are in crisis, I just recommend we start with the 4 walls. And this is your food, utilities, shelter, and transportation. And you just focus on those 4 things. That's it. Do not worry about the baby steps. Do not try to get out of debt. Just stabilize your household and keep your head above water. That's all that you need to do. I know in the American culture, we have a lot of extra things that people expect and want us to have. And our lifestyle can get a little wonky and out of balance. This helps us to refocus on what's truly important and not try and keep up with the Joneses by, having cable or having extra expenses that are just beyond what is really necessary. This just gets it down to bare bones. And it also helps us to start planning about the future. If we're in temporary housing, we can start looking at, okay, what money do I have available for these 4 things to be able to move to the next step? If I don't have enough money for these 4 things, that's the place where you're going to want to get some rental assistance from Access, or you're going to want to talk to your disaster case manager to get funds to cover some of these basics, maybe get food stamps, getting some assistance for these 4 things is basic. And we will talk a little bit about disaster case managers in a minute. Okay, so once you have the 4 walls stabilized, then you can start to think about these baby steps 1, 2, and 3. And baby step 1 is to have $1,000 in a starter emergency fund. And I have to say, as a single mom in debt with a low income, this was a game changer for me. It was huge. I had $1,000 in a little emergency fund, and suddenly I could actually relax in a place where I didn't know I was tense. I was holding this tension that I didn't even know I had, and it just shifted my entire way of being. And so I highly, highly recommend this. I know a lot of people say, oh, a credit card is my emergency fund, but that credit card exposes you to more risk, right? If there's a downturn, right, then those payments keep marching on. So I highly recommend you have this in cash, have it easily accessible. You can have it in your house, even in cash, or have it in the bank, whatever feels comfortable to you. And as we've seen from the fire, it's not a matter of if emergencies will happen, it's just simply a matter of when they will happen. And don't be discouraged if you have to charge, if you have to, put things that expenses that you have, you have to charge yourself basically and pull money out of this fund. I remember when I first had it as a single mom, I had three $300 expenses right in a row. And each time I had a little bit of time to replenish in between. It was like I had a big car part for $300, and then I took it out of the emergency fund, and then I replenished it. And then I had another expense for $300, and I took it out of the emergency fund and I replenished it. So those things can happen, but the beauty of it is the $100 creates a buffer so that you don't have to be creating any more consumer debt. All right, and usually most people, if you're working, most people are able to get this together in a month or two. If someone is, say, living on Social Security or disability, fixed income, and not working, it can take longer, of course, to build this up. All right, baby step 2. This is to pay off all your non-mortgage debt using the debt snowball. And I did this method. I had a chunk of consumer debt, and I did the snowball method. I listed all the debts in order from smallest to largest, paid off the smallest one first, and then all the money that was going to the smallest one went to the next largest debt. I mean, I was paying minimums all along, but you kind of snowball it to put more money on the debt until it's paid off, and then snowball that to the next largest debt, and then the next largest. I think my last debt was my car, and I ended up putting, I think it was about $1,000 a month on that. I had upped my income by that point to where I could put a big chunk on it every month. And you'll see results. It's really exciting, the snowball method, how it works. It builds energy. It's not mathematically recommended by the personal finance gurus who say, pay off your highest interest rate card first. And if you are disciplined enough to actually pay all your cards off with the mathematical formula of paying off the highest interest rate first, you're welcome to do that. I was not disciplined enough. I really needed to do the debt snowball method to give me like incentive, to get me pumped up, to feel like, oh, I got rid of one debt. Oh my gosh, because the smallest ones are easier, right? And then it gave me energy to do the next biggest debt, and then the next biggest. So it's pretty exciting, this particular method. And I highly recommend Dave Ramsey's debt-free programs. He teaches a lot on his podcast and website. So his method for getting out of debt is really motivating, and there's a lot of people doing it. So if you ever want to be part of a community to feel encouragement, I highly recommend you follow him. All right, and then baby step 3. This is the fully funded emergency fund, having 3 to 6 months of expenses and savings. And you can ask yourself, what would it take for me to live for 3 to 6 months if I lost my income? For me as a single mom, my first emergency fund, the fully funded one, was about $6,000 because I was living very simply, very cheaply. And I felt that was a good chunk for me to feel that I could be protected if I lost my income. Most 2-income households, you'll have an emergency fund, an average of about $10,000. And remember, this isn't an investment. This chunk of money is insurance for yourself. It's like a buffer between you and life, to keep danger at bay. And it's pretty great. I mean, we've used the emergency fund probably 2 to 3 times for large things, but it's great having it because it just keeps the drama in your life to a minimum. And there's a sense of ease and relaxation around crises that, you can deal with the emotional part of the crisis without having to deal with the financial part. The financial part is just already handled. Okay, and then the bonus step, this is so important for fire survivors. Oh my gosh, get enough basic insurance to protect yourself and your family. And this means I think everyone on this call should get insurance. Everyone who's watching this video should get insurance. Even if you are a renter, renter's insurance is $20, $25 a month usually. And homeowners insurance on average runs around $100 a month, a little less, a little more. It's not going to break the bank. It is, I'd say for most manufactured homes, 50 to 100 a month. So this is an investment you can make in yourself and your security that is so valuable. Health insurance, make sure you have your state health plan. I know that has been extended through September due to COVID for many people, or do the insurance marketplace where you get your discounted insurance or private insurance. If you make a lot of money, you have to pay the most expensive type. It's really important to keep your insurance up to date with market changes. As I said, we saw so many fire survivors cancel their insurance or not increase their insurance to the proper level. You have many seniors who were in a single wide mobile home that had been insured for its purchase value of $20,000 10 or 20 years ago, and they never upped the insurance. The homeowner never upped the insurance as the value kept increasing. And so that home may have been really worth 50 or 75 or 100,000, but if they didn't insure it for more, then they didn't get that payout. So really important to keep insurance up to date. And I'm very interested in seeing how we can support manufactured homeowners moving forward to do that, given that there's no legal requirement. With stick-built homes, a lot of times the insurance gets bundled into the mortgage, and so you have to have it. Whereas manufactured homeowners, they can let it lapse, and nobody's the wiser. So I'm curious how we can help with that moving forward. Okay, so those are the three baby steps and crisis step and bonus step that I recommend. And then you might be wondering, well, how do we do these? How do I get enough money for that $1,000? How do I, get enough money to up my insurance? And so the how is to make margin. Margin is the gap between your income and your expenses. I think of it like, it's like an alligator, what's that it's in fractions or in algebra, you have the sign that shows greater than. So it's like if you have your income is a certain level and your expenses are a certain level, the margin is the space in between. And that allows you to go after your goals. It allows you to actually save. It allows you to pay off debt. It allows you to move ahead. And again, it's okay if you're just treading water right now. For a lot of fire survivors, just the four walls, just staying stable with your basics is all you can do. And please do not beat yourself up if that's where you're at. Just know that some of these steps are something you can look forward to as opportunities open up for you. Okay, so how do you make margin? Let's talk about that. One of the things you can do is act your wage. And this is hard for Americans. I don't think it's so hard for fire survivors because many of us have been beaten down to the point where we're not getting in debt, like spoiled brat debt. If we got in debt, it's just survival debt, right? But you don't want to be overspending. That's really true. And where can you cut things out that are unnecessary? Take advantage of all the freebies possible. You want to talk to Access about housing help, both for housing grants and rental assistance. And you want to talk to your disaster case manager. I've listed the number here. You can call to get your very own case manager. if you have not been hooked up with one already. They can help with all of these things. Yeah, the rental assistance, rental housing library, housing grants, and funds to help with immediate costs, because sometimes the housing programs can take a little while. And if we're showing this video on social media, those links are in the post. So you want to live on less than you make and find ways to cut costs. Look for sales, use coupons, shop at the discount stores first, and shop around for fixed costs like phone bill, insurance. You can get better deals if you call around. If you run a small business, you want to use the 70-30 profit rule, which is 70% take-home pay, 30% operating expenses. And that's for small businesses that are service-based. If you run a product-based business, this is after cost of goods sold. You have all of your product costs off the top that you'll take off, and then you apply 70-30. And if you want to know more about that, let me know. I love to help small business owners with their profit margins. Another thing you can do is be willing to work. And I know this is hard for many fire survivors. So I encourage you first to strengthen yourself. Get mental health support. You can attend our social circles through Zone Captains meetups, or the well-being sessions through Bridges to Wellbeing in our network, or seek private counseling. And so I don't want to just, say, oh, buck up and work, because we can't force ourselves if we don't feel like it. If we're going through trauma, if we're dealing with emotional stress, we really need to attend to ourselves first. So I highly recommend that. And then when you feel able and you feel creative, or you feel you have extra energy, you can take on side hustles and extra jobs, do extra networking with your small business, do the reach out and calls that are required. There is a labor shortage right now. So if you're able to work, there are plenty of opportunities to do that and to up your income. And of course, apply for grants and look for giveaways and freebies wherever you go. I find a lot of times when I'm looking at my budget, and we'll talk about budgeting in a sec, I will sometimes leave a line in my budget for unexpected income, and I'll just be open to something new coming in. And sometimes it's an opportunity for a job where I can help someone. Sometimes it's a gift. Sometimes it's a rebate. Sometimes it's a grant. You just never know. But opening your mind to ways that more money can come in is a good step. Okay, and then create a monthly budget. This is huge, huge, huge. This is like I'd say probably the most important tool with this whole process is to have some kind of monthly budget. And a monthly budget is an organic thing. It moves and grows and changes with you every month. You may have some expenses that stay the same, but you'll have some that shift. So it's the kind of process that you'll do fresh every month. It's not like you write everything down and then it's stuck there. A budget moves and flows with you and your priorities and what's important to you. So I love the cash flow planning form. I'm happy to send that to anybody. I also love everydollar.com. I've been using that program for about 6 years, and it's very, very helpful. Mint.com is also one that a lot of people like. And there's programs through your bank or credit union. You might use a paper spreadsheet or an online spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet. Whatever method appeals to you is awesome. What I love about EveryDollar is that it's color coded with the color pie wheel, like this one that you see here on the screen. And me as an artist at heart, it appeals to my sense of color and beauty, and it simplifies things. And I also like that the fonts are big, so it presents the information in a really big and clear and creative way. And then, if you're a super number nerd, you may love something like Mint or Excel, where you have, all data, and you love the numbers more than anything. So whatever method works for you, give EveryDollar an assignment each month based on your income for that month. And again, if you're in crisis, start with those 4 walls. Start with your food, your shelter, your transportation, your utilities. Just put those things in your budget. And And then if you have a little bit more money to spend beyond those things, then you can start to budget in your monthly budget for your savings and your debt payoff. And budget really helps you feel more in control. I resisted budgeting for years and it got me into a heck of a lot of trouble. I was always chasing my tail, build up the debt, and I was just working to pay off debt, working to pay off debt. It was very frustrating. And when I started budgeting, it was incredible. I could be intentional and I could actually start to see progress towards my goals. So I highly recommend having a monthly budget, and you can contact us at Zone Captains if you want to know more how to do that. This is a gal that has been a coaching client of mine, Maria Chun. She's awesome. And she actually had a $65,000 turnaround from working with me and using these methods. So as a single mom. So again, another story of how, these basic methods can help anybody. And I hope they can help fire survivors. So one last time, I want to give a plug for Zone Captains. We're here to help. And you guys are all great, amazing Zone Captains, helping fire survivors out there in the world. And I just want to encourage people to have the website here to sign up for our network and to let us support you. And want to wish everyone best wishes for financial fitness moving forward so that we can all be more resilient and protect ourselves from risk. Thank you so much.